At the April 9th forum, candidate Kahl, you stated the Oregon tax system is broken and it's immoral. And candidate Nelsen, you stated that philosophically you could support a sales tax, but based on precedent, that simply won't work in Oregon. So then, gentlemen, what would you consider to be a fair and moral tax system? And if the sales tax isn't in the cards, what is? Candidate Nelsen.
Well, I'll tell you what. If fair and moral is the criteria we're looking for, then sales tax is the answer. All right, property taxes punish us for investing in our properties. It's punishment. Income taxes punish us for going out and being productive people. And they cut right at the heart of the prosperity of our families. Sales tax, on the other hand, punishes us for being conspicuous consumers and not being thrifty. Sales taxes reward us for saving and investing. That's what this nation needs. Now, whether or not that's politically viable down in Salem, and whether or not there's enough courage down there to get this on the table and bring this to the people, I have some strong doubts. But you can be assured, as your representative, I am going to always be a voice for what's moral and what's right. And sometimes I'll win and sometimes I'll lose. Sometimes I'll have to work with folks and we'll have to get something done. But I do have the courage and the stamina to stand up and do it and say what's right and be that voice.
Yeah, I guess what I think is, I think the premise of the question is actually really interesting. Is what's happened in Oregon is partisanship. I've actually been chastised by my campaign manager for saying partisanness. It doesn't. Apparently, the word doesn't exist. But partisanship has gotten us to a point where major issues, infrastructure, tax system, environment, what have you, has left all of those things neglected, and no party's actually benefited. And I'm very optimistic that this legislative session we're going to be building broad coalitions in Salem to actually take on some of these perennial problems. One of the things I said last time is that I've had that Governor Atiyeh was dealing with this tax system in the 80s during our worst recession and struggling with it then. And now here we are 30 years later, 28, almost 30 years later, dealing with the same issue, talking about the same problem again and again and again. What's different now is that you have the business community going down to Salem saying, you know what, maybe the corporate minimum tax is something we should talk about. Maybe we need to look at whether we're paying our fair share. And honestly, all sides of the table are talking about this. Everybody's showing up and talking about whether or not there's enough fairness in our tax system. And because of that, I think next legislative session we're going to see a breakthrough on this issue. We're going to see fairness being the underlying, the underlying idea that needs to drive our tax system, and we're going to see really divergent groups, disparate communities coming together to talk and deal with this issue, because Oregon cannot continue in the way that it is. It cannot continue to avoid these problems and allow partisanship to divide us any longer.